You know, we've all heard that old idea, right? Bigger brain, bigger smarts. It just kind of feels true. I mean, a thicker, more substantial brain cortex. That's got to be a sign of higher intelligence. It's a simple idea and it's really appealing. But what if the actual science tells a completely different story? A story that's way more interesting. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's just ask the big question right up front. Does having a thicker outer layer of your brain, the cerebral cortex, actually mean you're smarter? For a long time, neuroscientists have been digging into this, and believe me, the answer they found is anything but simple.
And this is where things get weird. It's a real scientific puzzle. See, on one hand, you've got this major study with hundreds of kids that finds a really clear positive link. The smarter they were, the thicker their cortex. Simple enough. But then you have another big study that finds at age 10, the more intelligent kids actually had a cortex that was a little bit thinner. So what gives? Thicker? Thinner? Which one is it?
Well, the real story, as it turns out, isn't something you can see in a single snapshot. You just can't take one picture of a brain at one specific age and expect to get the full picture. The connection between our brains and our intelligence is this dynamic, always changing relationship that's playing out over our entire lives. It's really a journey, not just a single measurement.
To figure this puzzle out, we've got to go back to the beginning, back to childhood, and see how the brain develops. This is where that paradox really kicks off. And to get it, we need to be clear on the two main ways scientists are measuring the cortex.
Okay, first up, we have cortical thickness. Just picture that outer wrinkly layer of your brain, the gray matter. Cortical thickness is literally just a measurement of how deep that layer is. You can almost think of it like measuring the depth of the soil in a garden.
And the second measurement is cortical surface area. Now this one isn't about depth at all, it's about the total area. If you could magically flatten out all the folds and grooves of your cortex, this would be its total size. So we've got depth, and we've got the total landscape.
And this is where that paradox just smacks you in the face. What researchers found was that at age 10, the kids with higher IQs had a cortex that was, on average, a little bit thinner than their peers. But, get this, at the very same time, their cortical surface area was a whole lot larger. So less depth, but way more landscape.
So let's follow this story as it moves into the teenage years, because this is when the brain goes through some of its most radical changes. It's not just getting bigger, it's being actively refined, it's being sculpted.
Yeah, think about a sculptor for a second. They don't make a masterpiece by just piling on more and more clay, right? No, the real art is in the refinement. It's about carefully removing the extra stuff to reveal the amazing form that's hidden underneath. And the brain, as it develops, works in a surprisingly similar way.
And if we stick with that analogy, the research shows something incredible. In more intelligent people, the cortex actually thins out at a faster rate during the teenage years. Now, this isn't a bad thing at all. It's actually a sign of efficiency. The brain is getting better at its job by trimming away the connections it doesn't need and making the important ones stronger. The masterpiece is just taking shape more quickly, more dynamically. At the same time, the cortical surface area is on its own wild ride. So, like we said, it starts out larger in smarter kids. Then, it hits its maximum size earlier in their adolescence. And once it peaks, just like the thickness, it starts to decrease at a faster rate. It's another sign of that super efficient sculpting process at work.
So we've got this pattern, right? A thinner but bigger cortex in childhood, followed by faster thinning in the teen years for more intelligent people. But what happens next is the real showstopper. As we move into adulthood, the whole story just completely flips on its head.
All right, get ready for this, because this is the moment that changes everything we thought we knew. At age 10, a thinner cortex is linked to a higher IQ. During the teenage years, a faster rate of thinning is linked to a higher IQ. But, and this is the kicker, by the time we hit our early 40s, the whole thing does a complete 180. A thicker cortex is now the thing associated with higher intelligence. Wow! And the study actually pinpoints this reversal happening right around age 42. So after decades of this developmental path where thinner is better, the script totally flips. And that initial intuitive idea we had, that a thicker cortex means you're smarter, it finally becomes true. The paradox is solved, but only after a 40-year journey.
So, what does this all mean? It means we have to completely change how we think about the brain and intelligence. It's not some fixed feature you're born with. It's a lifelong process of development. Intelligence isn't just sitting in the brain's structure, it's actively shaping it. The researchers who figured all this out really said it perfectly.
They concluded that intelligence isn't really about what the brain's structure is at any one moment. Instead, it's about the dynamics. It's about the size and the timing of the changes in that structure as it grows and develops.
And that leads to this really profound idea. The brain's cortex is never actually finished. It's not like a house that gets built and then just stands there. It's alive, it's changing, and it keeps on developing. And that development is directly tied to our cognitive abilities, well into our middle age, and probably for the rest of our lives. So let's just do a quick recap of the big takeaways here. First, one brain scan is just a single frame in a very long movie. It doesn't tell you the whole story. Second, intelligence isn't about a static size, it's about the dynamic process of development. Third, that thinning we see in the cortex when we're young, that's not a bad thing, it's a sign of efficient sculpting. And finally, and this might be the most important part, your brain's development never really stops. It keeps changing in relation to your intelligence your whole life.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty inspiring thought. If our brains are constantly being refined and optimized and sculpted by everything we experience and everything we think, well, it means the masterpiece is never really finished. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's your brain's next masterpiece gonna be?